Well, let's not pull any punches on this. Under the cover of a global pandemic and aided by years of indifference from Canberra and Washington towards the region, this week, China has quietly secured a military presence in the Indo-Pacific. And for China, this cements a long-held ambition to shift the balance of power in the region. During the week, the government claimed it only found out about the deal on social media last month. That is highly unbelievable. Meanwhile, Labor Deputy Richard Marles has been caught out encouraging China to create more toeholds in the Pacific. But is there anything in this for the Solomon Islands? One local opposition MP says the whole deal is unnecessary and not needed. This opposition MP is Peter Kenilorea Jr., who also chairs the Foreign Relations Committee. He joins us now from Honiara in the Solomon Islands. Peter, thank you very much for your time. It seems that this deal was negotiated in secret with your Prime Minister, Sogavare, but also kept essentially secret from the people of the Solomon Islands.
Good evening, Chris. Indeed, it is a very secret deal and one that we didn't know about until it came to light in terms of leaked documents. So, yes, it is secret, and that in itself is of a big concern to many of our Solomon Islanders.
It must surprise you to hear that the Australian Foreign Minister, Marise Payne, only heard about this last month. That can't be right, can it?
Well, you know, for myself, I've heard that something was being drafted around November by informants, but I haven't seen any actual draft until it was leaked myself. So there may have been some word about something being done after the riots of November.
Yeah, the PM today says he's been told by your Prime Minister that there'll be no Chinese naval port. Do you believe that?
No, I don't. I don't believe that at all. I think we need to be very careful in terms of moving forward. I expect a lot of activities to be happening now here in the Solomon Islands. I expect mining companies and interests. I expect fisheries. I expect aviation concerns. Interest. I also expect telecommunications with the 200 towers that Huawei will be looking to build on the backbone of the internet that's provided by Australia. So that is something that we're looking to happen, or at least I am.
So hang on, we provide the internet to the Solomon Islands and then the Chinese government come in and build some more infrastructure attached to it.
Correct. In the last government, I think it was the Turnbull government, Australia kindly assisted us because at that time there was also talk about Huawei building internet infrastructure and connecting it through Sydney. So we were happy and pleased that the Australian government at that time decided to help us out by pretty much giving us this backbone connection, internet, which we appreciate very much.
So what's in this deal for the Solomon Islands other than being entrapped and then dependent on China? Because they've done this kind of deal similarly in North Africa and Sri Lanka.
There's nothing in this deal for Solomon Islands as far as I can see. The agreement itself speaks of this interest locally or domestically to protect Chinese interests. We have a police force of only 1,000 policemen and women. They don't need two powers to train them. Currently, we have Australian trainers who've been helping out already in that field, which we appreciate very much. We don't need and see any value addition in having Chinese also train our police. So there is really nothing in it for Solomon Islands as far as I can see, but much more there for Beijing in terms of protecting their interests. And as I mentioned, there's no current interest that I see on the ground at the moment. The retail shops that unfortunately were victims of the rioting that happened in November are actually individual businesses, Chinese retailers for sure, but they're not Chinese investments particular. So I'm expecting Chinese investments to come in, and those will be protected.
There are rumours of payoffs given to government officials over this period. Given that Australia hands the Solomon Islands 2/3 of its foreign aid, it sounds like there could be truth to that. What do you think?
Oh, I think there's very much truth to that. And that was very clear at the last motion of no confidence that we had here in the Solomon Islands. The next day, literally, the government MPs were paid off by a fund that was based in the Prime Minister's office, which was a discretionary fund to the Prime Minister, and he paid off the members that supported him in defeating the motion. So it was very clear, and there's a direct link to funding and money being used to influence power here in Solomon Islands.
Gee whiz. What's your reaction to the news that one Australian MP thinks China's expanding reach in the region is a good thing?
Well, I don't know about Australia, but for Solomon Islands, I have been one that has been very concerned about this right from the beginning. I've been very vocal about the switch in diplomatic relations from Taiwan to Beijing, and this, particularly in terms of military ambition, was definitely my biggest concern. Although I was quite surprised to see it move this fast in terms of the security agreement. But I wasn't too surprised in the sense that the ambition ultimately was to have something like this, because post the switch, the immediate thing that happened was the attempted lease of Tulagi Island with its deep water ports, a potential for deep water port. So that was very, very concerning, and I see a direct line from that attempted lease, which later voided by the Attorney General's office here. Yeah,
the seed was obviously planted in 2019. One last one. Your father was the first Prime Minister of the independent Solomon Islands from 1978 to 81 and also served a second term from 84 to 86. If he was alive today, Peter, what do you think he would say about what's transpired with China?
Yeah, I think knowing my father and knowing his principles and values, he'd be very, very sad about what's happened. Definitely not the vision that the founding fathers of Solomon Islands would have had for us. Our values have been trampled on now in terms of how we've gotten so cozy with a new friend that we know very little about and we don't know how to handle. And we're starting to overlook our traditional partners and friends that we share the same values in terms of our democratic principles, but as well as Christian values. Solomon Islands is a Christian country, and most of our missionaries came from Australia, New Zealand, and the US. And that's a deeper connection we have with our friends.
Yeah. Well said. I appreciate your time. Peter Kenilorea, thank you so much.